From Citizen TV, this is the Monday Report with Trevor Ombija.
Yes, that's absolutely right. It's good to see you and it's good to be back. Let me be the first one to wish you a Merry Christmas and a happy 2025, all right? I had to be the first to do that. So, listen up. In January, the government is planning to vaccinate 70 million livestock, but the farmers are having none of it. The government says this is for vaccination against foot and mouth disease and PPR, which is a viral disease that is highly contagious among sheep and goats. But the farmers are very skeptical about that vaccination. We'll speak to the PS for Agriculture and Livestock Development, Jonathan Mweke, to tell us all about that vaccination. Why is it necessary now? How many animals are they targeting? How much will it cost the government? And you are welcome to send in all your questions at Trevor Ombija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Citizen Monday Report. But first, our top stories tonight.
Unless there is substantial move to settle NHIF liabilities from 1st of January, we will move to out-of-pocket payment. We have no other way.
No cash, no treatment. Private hospitals to charge for full cost of treatment effective 1st of January unless government pays 21 billion shillings pending debt.
We have no time for negotiations because we negotiated for 7 years and then we also negotiated for 56 days.
No more boardroom negotiations. Doctors reject calls for talks by government and threaten to paralyze health services starting Sunday, the 21st of December. Wages of crime. LGBTQ activist Edwin Chiloba's killer slapped the 50-year jail term. Despair and anguish. Hundreds left homeless after houses demolished in Kayole over land dispute.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Njoki Shege. So patients who seek medical attention from medical facilities under the Rural and Urban Private Hospitals Association of Kenya, that is RUFA, will be required to pay cash to access services effective January 1st. The private hospitals maintain that the government has remained non-committal on the payment of about 29 billion shillings owed to them by the now defunct National Health Insurance Fund, that is NHIF. They also say that the government has reduced capitation amounts under the Social Health Authority, leaving hospitals struggling to meet operational costs. Safin Achieng Ouma with the details.
Social Health Authority healthcare funding model remains under sharp scrutiny amidst a growing concern over its impact on cost and timely access to healthcare. Rural and Urban Private Hospitals Association of Kenya, RUFA, has accused the government of being non-committal on the payment of about 29 billion shillings owed to them by the now defunct National Health Insurance Fund.
Unless there is substantial move to settle NHIF liabilities from 1st of January, we will move to out-of-pocket payment. We have no other way. How do we keep the facilities open? You cannot have 3/4 of hospitals that have not paid their workers for the last 3 months and expect that healthcare will be normal.
RUFA also claims that the financial burden on patients and facilities has increased since the launch of SHA, citing limited reimbursements for outpatient services and rising costs for ICU and HDU.
Why is it that now the reimbursement for outpatient visit is 75 shillings per Kenyan per month? How is it possible that you can provide X-ray, ultrasound, laboratory tests within just 75 shillings per month? This is not the promise that we gave the Kenyan people. And they are telling us, because hospitals are unable to provide care under those terms, Kenyans are telling us that out-of-pocket expenditure is rising.
The latest circular issued by the Ministry of Health confirmed that SHA's coverage is based on tariffs that were gazetted in November 2024, which had indicated that SHA will pay for patients in ICU and HDU up to 3,360 per day for Level 4 facilities, 3,920 per day for Level 5 facilities, and 4,480 per day for Level 6 facilities, with patients required to top up any amount that exceeds the cover limit. RUFA's chairperson Brian Lishenga termed this a mismatch in the initial promise by the government and a slap in the face of many Kenyans who, despite the increased contributions, will be forced to make out-of-pocket payments.
Today, we have Kenyans who are being paid only 10% of an ICU bill. And we have statements coming out saying that ICU is only rebate. Now, if you are collecting more money, because of 2.75%, why is it that we are not getting more benefits?
There are concerns coming even as members of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers protested their exclusion from SHA empanelment. The union accused the SHA board of deliberately excluding clinical officers and their facilities from the contracting and pre-authorization procedures under the scheme.
Pediatric services, reproductive health, ENT, ophthalmology, all those services, we are the ones who are leading. When you have hastily decide kwamba hawa hawatafanya kazi, watapitia kwa mtu mwingine kinyume na sheria. Tunasema sababu yako ni kwa ajili ya kujibinafsisha na kuendelesha wizi wa mali ya umma kinyume na sheria.
KUKO has also called on President William Ruto to disband the SHA board and reconstitute it with individuals who understand the mission and vision of the universal health coverage. Safin Achieng Oma, Citizen TV.
So the crisis in the health services deepens by the day, with doctors vowing to paralyze operations countrywide effective Sunday. The Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union boycotted planned talks with the government and instead asked the government to honor the return to work formula that was previously agreed upon with the medics. Emily Chebet has more.
As the clock ticks towards December 21st, when the strike notice issued by the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union lapses, the government is making frantic efforts to avert the crisis which threatens to paralyze health services during the festive season. A meeting called by the Ministry of Health failed to take off as union officials boycotted. The health workers instead staged a peaceful protest to demand for implementation of the agreements.
We have no time for negotiations because we negotiated for 7 years and then we also negotiated for 56 days. So they have all these documents. So we want a total implementation of the agreements. We want to see the interns pay their debts. We want to see doctors in the counties pay their debts. We want to see doctors in the ministry pay their debts.
According to the union, no county out of the 47 devolved units has adjusted the doctors' pay, despite agreement that the new pay be effected by July.
From Friday, they should stop admitting patients, so that on Saturdays and Sundays they see which ones to discharge. But come Sunday midnight, all those who are at work should step away from work, so that government can be in charge of the facilities. And we are saying this time around, if the government resolves the issues that we agreed this week, we will not proceed on strike. If they implement these things that we agreed after 60 days, then we'll go back to work. If they do so after 200 days, then we'll go back to work.
Tunaambiwa kuna pesa ya interns, lakini kuna mabilioni ya Mpox. Aje sasa. Wao umeona mtu ana Mpox hapa Kenya? Ninyi madaktari mko hospitali. Mmeona Mpox mahali? Sijaona. Kama kuna pesa ya monkeypox, pia kuna pesa ya intern pox.
The union has also issued a 48 hours ultimatum to the Nairobi hospital to come up with a recognition agreement, saying the facility has declined to honor a court order asking them to recognize the union. They have also accused the facility of mistreating and underpaying doctors.
This hospital was once a premier hospital that served Eastern Africa and Southern South Africa. But we are seeing going perpetually being driven to the dogs. Right now, as we speak, there's tension within this hospital. There's a manner of degree in which people are not able to deliver the quality services that we intend to deliver.
According to the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, today's protest is just but a warm-up of next week's protest if the government will not heed to their call. Emily Chebet, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Away from the health crisis, the executive has moved to resolve a looming financial crisis in the devolved units by instructing Treasury to disburse 32 billion shillings pending equitable share allocation for the month of November. And as Seth Olale now reports, a meeting of the 11th ordinary session of the National and County Governments Coordinating Summit also resolved to transfer the corresponding resources related to the unbundled and gazetted functions to the county governments effective July 2025.
Top of the agenda during President William Ruto's meeting with governors at State House was the delayed disbursement of pending equitable share allocation to the devolved units. The executive assuring county bosses that the Exchequer has already remitted 32 billion shillings for the month of November 2024 to all the 47 counties.
As and when the situation improves, we want to be consistent as we support counties to discharge.
The Treasury has worked hard over the weekend, and that money will not have to wait for the Thursday deadline. It will be released today.
The 11th ordinary session of the National and County Governments Coordinating Summit also resolving to gazette the transfer of functions and resources from the national government to counties that have been unbundled and have mutually been agreed by the two levels of government.
That the corresponding resources related to the unbundled and gazetted functions shall be transferred to the county governments commencing July 2025.
The mid-month meeting by the Coordinating Summit is meant to ease pressure between the national government and the devolved units, more so in regards to disbursement and utilization of the much-needed funds, in a bid to end an administrative standoff between the county governments and the controller of budget over utilization of resources in the devolved units. A consensus-building meeting bringing together COG, controller of budget, treasury, and Attorney General, among others, was this evening held at the official residence of Deputy President Kithure Kindiki in Karen to address queries on quarterly reports, development expenditures, and approved withdrawals, among other issues. Seth Olale, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, tens of families in Nyamavila in Nairobi's Kayole estate have been left homeless after bulldozers demolished their homes. The homes were torn down after a prolonged land dispute dating back to 2002 between a real estate company and people said to be occupying the land illegally. Ode Francis has more.
The demolition began early Monday morning in Nyamavila, Kayole, Nairobi. Families caught unaware, no chance to save their belongings, watching in despair as the bulldozers ripped through stone walls and pillars. A Kenyan Defence Force veteran traveled overnight to save his property, which he says he put up after retiring from the Defence Forces.
Wakati nilikuja hapa, mimi sikujua hii manyumba ilikuwa ya mradi. Mimi niliruhusiwa property nikijua pesa zangu zile zote nimesanya kwa KDF nisiweke hapa niendelee kukula pole pole. Na nikalipa 900 million. Baada ya mwaka moja ubomozi ukatokea.
Bishop Josiah had rented the house 2 months ago. He had traveled home for burial and returned this Monday only to find his rented house being demolished.
I have just arrived this morning at 7:30 only to realize that my house is being demolished.
Jacqueline Ikoa recounts how she narrowly escaped death when the demolition began.
We just started running away because already the bulldozer was just next to my bed. Even I was almost dying. So I left everything, we just ran, plus with our children and everything.
Nominated member of County Assembly Joy Mwangi arrived to defend the residents, but it was too late.
This land belongs to Nairobi City Council. I have evidence to show this land belongs to Nairobi City Council. Polycarp kazi yake ni kutumia pesa, anaharas watu huku. People are dying. Angalia ile nyumba ya shosho kule imebomolewa. Shosho mzee. This is the one that they should follow. OCPD is hiding like a child huku ndani. Nimemtafuta nimpatie hii kitu. Ametumia kwa WhatsApp, anasema achukongi vitu kwa WhatsApp.
The dispute between the real estate company and landowner remains far from over.
Mwenye boma alikuwa amesema mimi nausia watu wale muko kwa hiyo plots. Nataka kila plot milioni 3. Sasa hao wanabomolewa sio kupenda kwao.
The real estate firm pushing on with demolitions of structures belonging to individuals, it says, have refused to pay for the pieces of land as per an earlier agreement.
These houses walipiga X 1 month ago na landlord wetu wakapiga rangi. Unaona? Wakapiga rangi. Tulipewa notice. Me, thank God, sijabomolewa.
The demolition on the same disputed land was stopped back in 2018 when the former President Kenyatta intervened.
As demolition continues in this area, families remain in despair, not knowing where they will sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow. Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Komarok, Nairobi.
Now, the Office of the Auditor General has flagged blatant abuse of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF. The latest audit of the fund reveals how members of Parliament and the respective CDF committees are abusing the issuance of bursaries to swindle multi-million shillings. The latest audit posted by the Auditor General showing how bursary funds are issued to non-existent beneficiaries, with some beneficiaries found to have no admission numbers. Stephen Leto has more.
The Auditor General in the latest audit of the NGCDF has lifted the lid and exposed the members of Parliament to patron the fund. The audit showing how bursaries are being abused in almost all the 290 constituencies. Sabatia constituency, for instance, was to spend 58 million shillings on bursaries, but only 38 million shillings was accounted for. But details on types and names of the learning institutions, bank details of the learning institutions, bursary amounts, full names of the students, and their admission numbers, the county in which the learning institutions are located, and receipts of confirmations that the bursaries were received were not found. In Rongo constituency in Migori County, 2.5 million shillings was sent for the purchase of laboratory equipment at Osodo Mixed Secondary School, only for auditors to find that the school had no laboratory. Auditors also found that 21 million shillings was irregularly spent on boreholes. The constituency office could not explain 46 million shillings alleged spent on bursary. In Narok West constituency, it is a similar misuse. Bursaries worth 9 million shillings was spent irregularly on 675 beneficiaries with no admission or registration numbers. The report established that some beneficiaries shared similar admission numbers in their respective schools or institutions, while some listed beneficiaries had no student names. The Narok West NGCDF office has also been questioned by the Auditor General for spending 25 million shillings on construction of classes in 2 schools. The Auditor General established that the classes did not meet the bill of quantities. The audit also established irregular reallocation of funds from the kitty and double funding of a project already funded by the European Union. Embakasi North constituency in Nairobi has unpresented checks worth 17 million shillings meant for bursaries, with the report flagging expenditure of 24 million shillings spent on projects that auditors cannot trace in Kariobangi. Nakuru Town East constituency received an adverse opinion from the Auditor General. The NGCDF office has been questioned for unsupported bursary awards worth 63 million shillings, with auditors also questioning security projects expenditure worth 21 million shillings and a further unsupported sports project expenditure worth 12 million shillings. As at April 2023, Isiolo South constituency presented to auditors that it had spent 13 million shillings worth of bursary, but that was never acknowledged in schools, with no official receipts provided to show disbursement. The audit office has now directed all project management committees to ensure full adherence to the law to seal corruption loopholes at the NGCDF kitty. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Stay with the crime matters. In Jekton Odhiambo, the man convicted for the murder of Edwin Kiprotich, also known as Chiloba, has been sentenced to 50 years in prison. Justice Reuben Nyakundi, while passing the sentence, found that Chiloba's murder was well planned and premeditated and would even warrant a death penalty. And as Kamau Mwangi now reports, Chiloba's family has welcomed the sentence.
Close to a year since Edwin Kiprotich, alias Chiloba's lifeless body, was found stuffed in a metallic box by the road in Moiben in January of last year, justice has finally caught up with the perpetrator who committed the heinous crime. Jackton Odhiambo, an intimate friend to the late LGBTQ rights activist, found guilty earlier this month, was handed the 50-year jail sentence by Justice Reuben Nyakundi of the Eldoret High Court. According to the judge, the murder was planned and premeditated with malice by the suspect.
The middle ground for me, Jackson, for you, is to serve a custodial sentence of 50 years imprisonment, taking into account that you have been in demand custody. Those years you have been in custody be removed as a credit for you. The years you spent under 16332.
The sentence, according to Justice Nyakundi, is a slap on the wrist for the convict who would otherwise deserve death. The court found that he even molested the victim before committing the murder.
That after committing the death, destroying the evidence in the apartment, going for a motor vehicle, buying the metallic box which is used as a first coffin, these are actions which cannot really be in the context of remorse, whatever, even if you use Black Law Dictionary to define the word remorse and regret.
11 days ago, during the matter's judgment, the court found that the prosecution had proved beyond any reasonable doubt that Odhiambo was with Chiloba on his last day, with scientific evidence from the government pathologies and data from a mobile service provider, placing the convict at the scene of crime.
Today's sentence to us is not that bad, because 50 years, Simba, although it will not bring back our brother from the grave, he is gone, but it's not that bad. It's fair.
The motive for which the 25-year-old freelance photographer took the life of his best friend and roommate still remains unclear. Kamau Mwangi, Citizen TV.
Now, only 26% of Kenyans have confidence that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that is IEBC, will conduct free and fair elections in 2027. This, according to a new survey by Infotrack. The latest poll released on Monday revealed that the confidence level of Kenyans in the electoral body is quite low, as 60% believe there is no transparency in the commission. The results of the survey, conducted between November 16th and 30th, cited external interference as their major concern. Ben Kirui has the details.
Corruption, past irregularities, lack of transparency, and insufficient independence are the major concerns cited by Kenyans as the causes of lack of confidence in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC. The survey by Infotrack found that 38% of Kenyans believe that the IEBC will fail to deliver due to corruption, while an equal 38% consider the absence of commissioners to be a critical issue for the agency. Respondents identified several key challenges facing the IEBC, with 39% citing external interference, inadequate funding at 23%, and insufficient resources at 13%.
Only 26% of Kenyans have confidence in the IEBC to conduct free and fair elections in 2027. Indeed, majority, 54%, are not confident that IEBC can conduct free and fair elections in 2027.
The survey, supported by the Electoral Law and Governance Institute in Africa, also highlighted a worrying 50% level of voter apathy. Furthermore, the poll revealed that 41% of Kenyans lack identification cards, a significant barrier to voter registration. Additionally, 16% of those interviewed reported that a busy schedule prevented them from participating in the last general election, while 27% expressed disinterest and 25% believed their vote would not make a difference.
There is a third of Kenyans who actually believe that it is true, that it's already predetermined. Whether you do what, whether you vote, the candidate that's preferred by those with power, that then can be consolidated in the word government, that is the person that will be declared as winner.
In an effort to rebuild trust in the electoral process, 40% of Kenyans called for an independent and impartial IEBC, while 39% emphasized the need for greater transparency in elections, civic education on the electoral process, and measures to prevent vote rigging were also identified as crucial steps toward reform. The poll further found that 75% of Kenyans across all regions have not been involved in any public participation, thus being denied a voice in critical national decisions.
The issue of public participation has come out very clearly. So how then that can be embodied as one of the processes that the various institutions, executive and otherwise, encompasses effectively.
When asked about their most pressing concerns, 51% of Kenyans highlighted the cost of living, 36% pointed to unemployment, 24% expressed concern about rising corruption levels, while 23% were troubled by overtaxation and migration from NHIF to SHA. The survey also touched on the public's trust in key government institutions, with the executive and the National Assembly leading at 37%, followed by the police at 33%.
One of the things that perhaps these institutions need to do is go back to the drawing board, reflect, look at what it is that are the guiding principles.
Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, on that note, the Monday Report takes a quick break. We're back with much more. All right, thank you for staying with Citizen TV. So President William Ruto has been at loggerheads with government critics over the proposed national livestock vaccination in what is intended to rid the country's exports of harmful traces in dairy and meat products. A section of farmers have expressed resistance to the drive, saying that they already vaccinate their animals against known diseases and they don't understand why the campaign is necessary at this time. The Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, however, has defended the initiative, saying it is crucial to save the sector from global alienation. Melita Oletenges has been looking for clarity on the matter and filed this report.
The sound of soothing music for cows at Joiro Farm, creating a calm atmosphere for milk production. While it may seem that cows have musical preferences, it turns out that the government has its own soundtrack. That of vaccinating cows, goats and sheep to improve their productivity and quality in milk and beef, ensuring they meet international standards.
Ndio tuweze kuondoa magonjwa, ndio soko yetu ambayo tumetafuta ya nyama tuweze kufikia hiyo soko. Kuna soko nyingi imefungwa ya huko nje kwa sababu ya mambo ya magonjwa.
Sometimes you find antibiotics in your milk. Antibiotics come from a cow that is sick and has been treated with antibiotics, and that shows up in your milk. How do you prevent the cow from getting sick? You vaccinate.
While the government sees this as a step forward, some of the farmers disagree.
Na hatuelewi, na hatutaki. Wakikuja, kwani ng'ombe ni yao? Ni yangu.
Kama mimi mwenyewe naona hiyo nitaogopa kuchanja mifugo wangu ama kufanya vaccination kwa mambo ambayo sijaelewa vizuri.
But the president's mind is made.
Anybody opposing vaccination to eliminate FMD and PPR is simply mad and unreasonable and possibly stupid.
And the matter has turned political. Some suspicious that it might all be a conspiracy with some foreign agenda.
Kiwa ni wazungu ambapo kwa wenyewe wamekataa mambo haya, alafu tunakuwa kama sisi ndio guinea pigs na wanyama wetu, tuna umuhimu, tuna haki kikatiba kusema la.
However, the Department of Livestock Development has defended the initiative. According to the department, the vaccination program is a local solution to a local problem.
There's no correlation between what we are vaccinating our animals and the purported climate action, as alleged by some leaders.
A statement released by the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development on 15th November 2024 stated that the national vaccination program will target 22 million cattle against foot and mouth disease and 50 million sheep and goats against peste des petits or PPR disease.
PPR vaccine costs just about 35 shillings. Foot and mouth disease vaccine will cost just over 100 shillings per animal.
Based on PS Mweke's figures, it would mean that vaccinating 22 million cows against foot and mouth disease at a cost of 100 shillings per dose would require 2.2 billion shillings, total of 3.95 billion shillings. According to the Livestock Department, the government will pay the fees, but farmers are expected to pay back.
We can get them access to credit for the inputs, which will be funded by government, and then that will be deducted from them as they sell their animals.
That will be something which is easy said than done, because where do you get this farmer? Unless, for example, if this farmer is taking his milk to maybe KCC, for example.
A section of farmers and veterinary medical practitioners, however, cite varying figures, with the vaccine against foot and mouth disease going for as high as 200 shillings when it reaches the farmer. Some of the farmers say that they regularly vaccinate their animals against foot and mouth disease, anthrax, lumpy skin disease, Rift Valley fever, and East Coast fever. They now wonder if the government's drive is a one-off for all, or it's targeted for regions not reached by the vaccines, and whatever the case, how urgent is it?
We need more information in terms of what kind of vaccine has now come into the market, which requires like one lifetime vaccination, so that we are comfortable that there are no long-term effects which this vaccine is going to have on our animals.
Farmers like John Tasikoi and Richard Kone, who primarily raise cattle for beef, and Joseph Rono, who runs a dairy farm, argue that the vaccination process lacks transparency.
Hatujahusishwa, ni kusikia tu, ni inaitwa ubunuwasi ambao unaendelea katika taifa letu.
With the conversation having evolved into claims that the vaccination drive is a plot to control methane gas emissions, experts suggest that vaccination is not the only solution to environmental challenges.
If you use efficient feeds, and also you can now also ferment feeds outside the rumen, all these methods reduce methane production.
For now, farmers continue with their daily activities as they tend to the animals in a season of festivities, during which many animals kept for meat will be slaughtered. Question is, how safe will they be for the season until the government rolls out a drive to make them safer for local human consumption? Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
So the Kenya Revenue Authority dismissed 25 staff members in the first quarter of this financial year in the fight against corruption at the authority. A total of 84 staff was sanctioned, up from 37 in the last year. KRA also says that in the last financial year, the authority recovered about 4.2 billion shillings through the use of technological tools like iWhistle, a platform for anonymous reporting of tax evasion and corruption. Lifestyle audits led to the recovery of further 549 million shillings. Additional efforts include regional anti-corruption collaborations, corruption prevention committees, and integrity awareness programs to boost compliance and transparency. So ineffective policies and logistical challenges remain key obstacles to grain trade in the East African region. Against this backdrop, stakeholders in the grain sector are meeting in Nairobi to chart a path towards improving trade and strengthening food security. Dennis Otieno has more.
In East Africa's trade corridors, grain is more than just a commodity. It's a lifeline. But the grain trade faces significant challenges that threaten food security and economic stability in the region, with ineffective policies and logistical inefficiencies leading the list of concerns.
Policy is a key hurdle in terms of both non-tariff barriers to trade and even barriers to trade. Secondly, we have the big issue of the cost of logistics. It's quite expensive to move in our roads, the state of the roads, the price of fuel, and therefore logistics and transportation is a very big challenge affecting grain trade.
Even border posts designed to streamline trade continue to experience delays. The introduction of one-stop border posts was a step forward, but according to Masila, trucks still face days-long waits for clearance.
We still have cases where trucks are taking days, are spending days at the borders in queues waiting to be cleared, and this, of course, increases the cost of production.
The reliance on foreign currency has also emerged as a barrier, exposing the region to exchange rate fluctuations and slowing the flow of goods. Despite these challenges, the government remains optimistic and emphasizes the importance of partnerships.
We need to have more and more of these dialogues so that we can have the facts and figures correct. We can also hear what the private sector is doing and what the private sector is saying for us to be able to make the correct policy decisions for the growth of the sector.
Grain trade in the region faces significant challenges across the entire value chain. However, collaboration among stakeholders marks a crucial step in unlocking the region's agricultural potential. Dennis Otieno, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
So President William Ruto has launched the Clean Cooking Gas for Public Institutions project aimed at promoting the use of cleaner energy in schools across the country. The initiative targets secondary schools, technical and vocational education and training institutes and teachers training colleges. This will enable them to transition from biomass fuels such as firewood to cooking gas. President Ruto says that the program is key in protecting the country's forest cover and strengthening efforts to combat climate change. The government plans to complete the rollout within 1 year.
I am inviting the private sector to work with us on this very important project of delivering clean energy to all our schools. This is a project that we are not going to spend so much government money. This project is going to be financed by the private sector. As we buy cars from them, they will be required to install all the LPG tanks in our schools and in our other facilities.
Now, microscopes are an essential tool in every learner's journey. However, their bulky design and high costs make them largely unavailable for most Kenyan learners. A mechatronics engineer in Nairobi has found a solution to make these microscopes cheaper and more environmentally friendly. Raf Wangutusi takes us through on this week's edition of Made in Kenya.
These black and white heavy metallic machines stand out from any lab equipment in view. In Nairobi's Kawangware area, Solomon Gitau, an engineer and researcher, has created a lighter, cheaper and more sustainable microscope, all made through 3D printing from plastic bottles.
We found out that locally we have lots of waste PET bottles, and so from this filament we wanted to show a product that can be used in the industry. And so we came again and met with other people from the UK again, and then we did a merger where we made a microscope. Then from this microscope we started now making the microscope for use in local education sector.
The microscopes cost 7,000 Kenyan shillings, about half that of standard microscopes in the market. Each microscope is made from 10 recycled plastic bottles. Learners get an added advantage of viewing subjects through a digital screen connected via a USB cable instead of the smaller built-in lenses.
Why I chose to use the phone is because I was not thinking about students who are able to access laptops in Nairobi. I'm thinking about students who are not able to access laptops in Wajir, Garissa. A phone is something that is now a basic commodity. And with the application that we downloaded anywhere in this country, it gives access to all the students. And regardless of how many students can be able to see around you in a microscope, you can actually, in a phone, you can actually be able to twist and have all these like 5 students watching it. But if you want, if better resources are available, you can actually even use a 40-inch screen.
With 3D printing being a fairly new technique in the country, Solomon believes it serves as a great tool for innovators with ideas to produce physical items.
3D printing is a good tool, especially when you want to rapidly test things. It's one of those tools that is going to revolutionize the African industry, right? Because it's a cheap product that anyone can be able to put in their home and develop with it.
Having reached only 10 schools with the microscope so far, Solomon's hope is for the tool to one day benefit more Kenyan learners. As interest grows in Kenya's creative economy, there remains a need for greater support for existing innovators to scale such ideas. Ralph Wangutusi, Citizen TV.